What happens when your KPI dashboard looks fine, but your OEE is no longer where it needs to be? Sometimes everything looks right. Your measurables are telling you everything is within spec, but for some reason your operational challenges continue. What's changed? What's caused a reliable metric you've used in the past to suddenly start giving you false sense of operational control? With production at record levels, this parts manufacturer was suffering from poor OEE and rising costs. They found themselves in more and more of a reactive environment. Overtime hours continued to climb, and they were just scrambling to keep up. High turnover and the lack of time necessary to do any real root cause troubleshooting, they found themselves in a place where they thought they were running everything right, but for some reason they continued to run into issues. Their press fluids were foaming severely, making their post-press parts inspections very challenging. Quality yields were suffering, and they just weren't hitting the production numbers they had been able to achieve in the past. What changed? What caused a capable process to suddenly lose its capability? This facility had specific operating targets for their press fluid concentrations. In fact, when times were slower, they had gone through extensive fluid selection processes to identify the right fluid and at what concentration they needed to maintain it at in order to get the OEE and cost management performance they were looking for. Operators were under strict instructions to use refractive index to measure the concentration and make adjustments based on those readings. After some root cause investigation, we discovered that higher production levels had resulted in higher rates of contamination getting into their press fluids. The systems designed to remove contamination were no longer able to keep up, and contamination continued to build. And that's where it got interesting. Contamination started looking like press fluid concentration to the operators. Using refractive index, the operators saw high concentrations and therefore stopped adding fresh concentrate to the system. Less concentrate meant the fluids had an even harder time rejecting contaminants, which just continued to build up over time. The test method used to manage this key performance metric was no longer valid. Decisions were made based on invalid and incorrect data. Poor performance and waste could be traced back to this flawed metric. How much time and money had been spent chasing an incorrect KPI? Data-driven decision-making is the only way to optimize process costs and eliminate waste. It's the only way to drive up OEE and sustainably reduce costs. When that data is just plain wrong, however, data becomes the source of the problem instead of the path to its solution. Verification is one of the critical steps in the control, plan, do, act management system. Without it, the control loop falls apart and the process slips back into reactive or containment mode. Verification is the enemy of tribal knowledge. It's where the rubber hits the road and true cause and effect gets validated. Can you think of a time when chasing an incorrect metric led to all sorts of waste, hurting your overall plant performance?